Dr. Craig Evans is back with us for part 4 of our series during this Holy Week. He's been painting a picture for us of the historical context in which Jesus lived, died, and was resurrected. We appreciate how he's been able to take his academic insights as a top New Testament scholar and translate them into layman's language to help us better understand the story of Jesus' Passion Week. Dr. Evans, thank you once again.
Good to be here, Ron.
So we've been walking through different portions. I've been reading a little selection from the Scripture, and you're just giving us some further insights. And so let's do that again, because here it is, Thursday, and Jesus is getting closer to the cross. But he does something unusual with his disciples. He gathers them together for a special meal. And we always know it as the Lord's Supper. So let me just read the portion here from Matthew 26, starting at verse 26. And as they were eating, Jesus took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to the disciples and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." Then he took the cup and gave thanks and gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you. For this is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many for the remission of sins." The significance of what Jesus did there.
Well, he in effect has established a new covenant. His language harks back to Exodus chapter 24, when the original covenant at Sinai was established. And Moses takes the blood of a sacrificial animal and he actually sprinkles the congregation of Israel that's crowded about him, and uses that same language about this is the blood of the covenant. Jeremiah in chapter 31 predicts the day will come when there will be a new covenant, and it could mean covenant renewed. The Hebrew's ambiguous. And so we think that's what Jesus is talking about. The prophecy of Jeremiah that there will be a new covenant is now being fulfilled. So it's like the old covenant, but the big difference is the old covenant at Sinai, when the people of Israel had escaped Egypt and was wandering about in the Sinai wilderness, that covenant was founded on the blood of a sacrificial animal. The new covenant comes from the blood of the Son of God himself, Jesus. And so that's why the author in the book of Hebrews talks about Jesus as the ultimate sacrifice that need never be repeated. Because the old covenant had to be reestablished annually, but even daily with sin offerings. But the author of Hebrews rightly says when Jesus died and shed his blood on that cross, that was the atoning sacrifice, the sacrifice for all time that pays for human sin, does not have to be repeated. And so these words of institution, as they're called, these words spoken at the Last Supper, are very precious, very special. And that's why Paul, in one of his letters, says that this is to be done frequently. And every time it's done in the memory of Jesus who died for all of us. So for me, it's a very important passage of Scripture.
Now, Jesus was gathering with his disciples on Passover, so that they were having a regular, as they would have since being young children, with their families, celebrated the Passover meal. So the significance of the Passover and what Jesus was doing there, talk about that.
Well, yeah, it is very significant, and I don't think I think it's providential. It's not a coincidence that it just happened, Jesus' death happened on the eve of Passover. What was Passover all about? God saving Israel from bondage. What's Jesus' death all about? Once again, God saving us not from Egyptian bondage, but from a far worse bondage, lost and enslaved in sin and estranged from God. So this new covenant through Jesus' blood is the ultimate act of salvation. It goes way beyond God's mighty act of salvation long ago when he rescued the Hebrew people from the Egyptians.
Tomorrow, Dr. Evans, we conclude Passion Week with the crucifixion. And so thank you for dropping by each day and helping us walk through this. Tomorrow is so significant, and we want you to make sure you tune in. And as you celebrate Easter this weekend, let's just think of the amazing love of God, that Jesus would come and suffer and die for us. But also on Monday, we're going to conclude with the resurrection, because Easter Sunday, of course, is what we celebrate at church. And so back on 100 Huntley Street on Monday, we want to talk about the amazing truth that everything hinges on, really.